Okay, good evening, and thank you to all of the candidates for joining us at the candidate forums hosted by the League of Women Voters. My name is Katie, and I will be your moderator for the forum. This forum is being streamed live and also recorded for playback on the City of Fargo government's PEG TV channel, TV Fargo 56. This recording will also be posted to the League of Women Voters Red River Valley Facebook page. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization. The League encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. If you would like to learn about the League, please visit our website or find us on Facebook. The League of Women Voters sponsors candidate forums to provide the public with an opportunity to hear candidates discuss the issues that are important to members of the public. The League is a nonpartisan organization that does not support or oppose any political party or candidate. The views expressed in each forum are those of the candidates and not of the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters posts complete, unedited recordings of forums. Editing is authorized only for official media reporting, and excerpts or edited clips of candidate forums may not be used for partisan or political purposes. We want to thank the City of Fargo for providing the space and technical assistance for this evening's event. Before we begin, I would like to review the rules and procedures. Questions have been submitted in advance by the public on index cards for this event. Questions may have been screened for clarity or combined with similar questions. All candidates will be given an opportunity to address each question. Our candidates participating tonight are from District 10. Each candidate will have 1 minute for their opening remarks. Each will then be allowed 1 minute to respond to each question. At the conclusion of the Q&A period, candidates will be given another minute for their closing remarks. A timer, located sort of behind me, will indicate how much time is remaining and will indicate when your time is done. When you hear the buzzer, that means your time has expired. Please complete your sentence or thought so that we may move on to the next candidate or question. We will begin with opening statements with Ryan and proceed down the line in turn.
Good evening, and thank you for the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. My name is Ryan Braunberger, and I am running for District 10 State Senate. I'm a lifelong Fargo resident, and I have seen Fargo grow over the years. There has been that growth has created many opportunities for several individuals. However, it has left many behind. Today in our area, we have people that are struggling to find childcare. We have individuals that are struggling to pay their rent, and then we have businesses that are closing because they can't find workers. We can solve those issues by supporting our childcare workers and expanding early education and after-school programs. We can also, North Dakota has the resources available to be able to do all of this, and I want to make sure that we get to the State Senate to help all these individuals.
Thank you. And Curtis.
Well, thank you to the League for sponsoring this event for us candidates and for the voters. In my background, the most important thing I could mention is that I served previously in the State Senate from 2006 to 2012, serving as Vice Chairman of the Judiciary Committee and also on the on the Political Subdivisions Committee. I am a now retired lifelong farmer, rancher, construction business owner, national political consultant. I've traveled over the country doing that. And the reason that this experience, not only in the Senate previously, but in business, the reason it's important is because there are no sitting state legislators living in this district. So it's a brand new district, and it would be good for the district to send people to Bismarck who have experience. My running mate, Steve Swantek, and I bring 14 years of prior legislative experience and a lifetime of experience in business to bring to bear on behalf of this brand new district.
Thank you. And Hamida.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the League to host this event. My name is Hamida Dakane, and I am running for North Dakota House in District 10. Tonight, I would like to talk about the challenges our neighbors in District 10 are facing that they have shared with me when I was at their door visiting with them throughout the campaign. Childcare is expensive and unavailable to many families, and it is very hard for people not to provide for themselves if they cannot work. Parents that I've talked to are talking about how they support our education system and how they want to be supportive to the teachers and the staffs that provide the education to our children. Women are terrified of how things are going in North Dakota with the reproductive right. I want to represent all those people in Bismarck and being a voice and being a representative.
Thank you, Hamida. Damien.
Hello. Thank you to the League for hosting us again tonight. And I'm Damien Riddle. Lived in North Dakota most of my life, and I'm running because we have work to do. We have needs in our district, and there are things that talking to people we need to get taken care of. We need childcare available. We need to make sure our education is funded. We need to make sure people can afford their housing, whatever that situation is, be it property taxes, being able to buy a house, being able to even rent a house. So that's one of the main issues. Also, we need to protect our reproductive freedoms. That is key. And on top of it, we need to not screw over our veterans and privatize the VA. That needs to stay. Thank you.
Thank you, Damien. Steve.
Hi, my name is Steve Swantek, and I'm a candidate for the North Dakota House from District 10. Thank you to the League for having this opportunity to visit, and also to my fellow 4 other candidates that are running. I think this is not an easy task to do, and so I applaud everybody that we have a good constructive dialogue tonight as well. I'm running for a number of issues, mental health, addiction and services, improving that, enhancing that, supporting our schools, really working on workforce development as well as for childcare areas. And I look forward to the discussion and digging in deeper regarding all of those areas. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Curtis, you are first on my list for questions. So what experience do you have that qualifies you for this position? Or, yes, that qualifies you for this position?
Well, I covered several of those in my opening statement. My prior service in the Senate from 2006 to 2012, and also my lifetime of experience in business. And again, the legislature is a very challenging arena. And if you have prior experience in business and in the legislature, that is really something that gives you a head start. That means that doesn't mean I know everything, but it means I can hit the ground running on day one. And I think that's an important thing for a brand new district where we have no sitting state legislators living here. I also have been a community leader back in my former area back home. I've been a church council president. I've been president of my local Icelandic association, and that's given me a lot of experience in leadership. I've been on the county job development authority and traveled the country nationally doing national political work. So,
thank you, Curtis. Now, Hamida.
Well, I'll say my educational background. I have a good education, all thanks to North Dakota. I went to NDSU, graduated from there. I went to University of Mary with my master's in public administration. And in between, I've done a lot of work locally in our community. I have formed a couple organizations that work and provide service to our community. I've worked with elected people. I've worked with business leaders. I've worked with religious leaders, and I think my strongest thing I will say is communication and bringing people together. And I am a good listener. I listen to people at their doors, and I will carry that. And I think that is what gives me a good chance.
Thank you, Hamida. Damien?
Well, I'm a high school graduate, but a lot of my experience does come from I've been actually in lower management and middle management, and I've done years of management experience at retail stores, up into district things. But I think what I can really add to this is bringing fresh blood into the legislature and the ideas of the communities and the issues of the communities as a regular community person myself, bringing those to the forefront and being able to fight for our communities and being our representation in Bismarck.
Thank you, Damien. Steve?
I've been a lifelong North Dakotan, and having had the privilege of serving in the legislature for 8 years, both on the Education Committee and Social Services and Veterans Affairs areas, the committee that provided me an opportunity to get an appreciation of what we were dealing with in those years, many years ago. I decided not to run again for re-election because we were focusing on my career at Gate City Bank and then also raising a family. And also having been on the school board for 6 years here in Fargo, as well as I think the importance of understanding and being aware and focusing on what the needs are. When you go door to door, you get an appreciation of what people are dealing with. But also, it's not just by going door to door, it's having the opportunity during all of these life experiences we've had, being a dad, being a president of a community bank, all of those that you're working with people on a day-to-day basis to understand what they have to deal with.
Thank you, Steve. And back to you, Ryan.
My experience that I would bring to the table is that I have worked closely with the Department of Health in the past when I was community co-chair of the Community Planning Group for HIV and Viral Hepatitis Prevention. So I helped guide federal funds on making sure that people are getting the care they needed throughout the state and preventing the spread of HIV. I also have experience with board of directors when I was down in Sioux Falls, South Dakota as board of directors for the Center for Equality. And I worked to help make sure that we made sure that people had a place to go when they needed it. Plus, I also have my degrees I have a business degree and an associate's degree in business, and a bachelor's in social work, where I have worked with homeless individuals over the years and helped them find homes, which is very important for our voters.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, Hamida, you get to start this next round. And now the question is, finding adequate childcare is a problem in North Dakota. How should the legislature address this issue?
Well, that's a good question, and that is what I hear from parents every day when I knock at their doors. And childcare is a struggle for many North Dakotans, not only in District 10, but it's an issue, and we have waited too long to become a crisis in North Dakota. And now we are talking about it because it's affecting the workforce. And the legislative need to put, this should be an issue for both Democrat and Republican. It's not one side issue because it's affecting family, and everybody has a family and we all care about our families. So we need to put money and we need to put our brain into it to figure out how to do it. By doing that, we need to bring business owners on the table. We need to bring community leaders. We need to bring organizations and figure out together. North Dakota has money. It's not that we don't have money. It's only that we have waited this to become crisis, and I will be a voice for that.
Thank you. Damien.
Well, childcare is one of the most important things in our community and across North Dakota as well. We do need to make sure this is something that's provided. People can't work if their childcare costs more than the paycheck that they get from that job, which is the case from so many people I've talked to. And there's childcare that isn't open. And we are a wealthy state. We do have money that we can put towards these resources. There are also other avenues too. With an announcement that the president made today, we can look at the legalization of cannabis, recreational cannabis, tax it properly, and then we can apply that tax or use that to fund childcare and education.
Thank you. Steve.
What I've really appreciated appreciate about this dialogue regarding childcare. It's not just here, all of us talking about it, but it's both political parties that are really discussing it. And I think that's really critical. There may be different perspectives of how each political party look at it, but I think everybody realizes that it is an issue and something we need to deal with. The governor's task force has come up with recommendations. Also, there's a Senate and House committees that are looking at that during the interim and will be providing recommendations for the full House and Senate to consider this year. Just some things like, for example, it costs over $1 million to open up a new child care facility, okay? Can we use the legacy fund to provide low interest loans or no interest loans for those individuals that want to open up a new daycare facility? Also, a lot of times, those individuals may not be fully knowledgeable as far as how to run the business. They do a phenomenal job when it comes to childcare and working with them, but they need some assistance when it comes to running the business.
Thank you, Steve. Ryan.
Childcare is obviously very important, as everybody has said already, and it is preventing people from going to work, and so it is also a workforce issue. I think we also need to make sure that we're supporting our childcare workers as well and making sure they're paid their fair share. I think we need to make sure that they are receiving the education as well to be able to handle emergency situations like CPR, any first aid issues. I think it's important that as a state we continue to discuss across both parties on ways that we can support our childcare and make sure that every corner of the state has access to childcare, because there's parts of the state that don't even have childcare facilities at all, that have made very hard decisions for families on if they want to pursue a career. Every individual should be able to pursue whatever life they want. And if there is barriers like access to childcare, that prevents somebody from being who they truly are.
Thank you, Ryan. Curtis.
As Steve alluded to, the people are starting to recognize across party lines that this is a deterrent to our economy, and it's a problem that the legislature needs to address. And when I first looked at this issue quite some time ago and saw that it was a big problem, I started thinking about what kind of solutions could we come up with. And what I think the legislature should consider and pursue and discuss is some type of public-private partnership, where if an employer has X number of employees and they're assisting their employees with their child care needs, then the state, I think, should step in. Steve mentioned the legacy fund. I think it would be a source. The state should step in and provide some type of financial incentive to help the child care providers and the employers who are helping them to continue to provide that child care, whether that be through reducing or subsidizing unemployment taxes or workers' comp premiums.
Thank you, Curtis. Okay, Damien, this question is for you. So President Biden announced today that he will pardon all prior federal offenses of simple marijuana possessions, a move that senior administrative officials have said would affect thousands of Americans. Biden has also encouraged governors to do the same at the state level. Would legalizing recreational marijuana be a priority for you at the state capitol?
Absolutely. Like I said before, recreational cannabis would provide an excellent avenue for new revenue into the state for our education, which is still well funded as it is, and for childcare, and even for protecting the VA. This is a relic of a war that's clogging our prison systems. We're having to pay out of our taxes for this. This is unneeded. So I would absolutely support a move for legalization of cannabis.
Thank you, Damien. Steve.
Well, on the ballot this year, I believe measure number 2, the voters will have to make a decision on legalizing marijuana in North Dakota, along with a tax, I believe, at 5%. And then it also gives some discretion to the legislature to make some decisions as far as what department will be responsible for this whole area. I will support and vote for that on the ballot. I think that that's something that we should have in place. I think there's the protections and mechanisms there for employers to protect them as far as making sure that their employees are not engaged or involved with that. It allows, I believe, the resources to focus on those major crime areas and those other types of issues. So we'll know on November 8th as far as what the voters have decided.
Thank you, Steve. Ryan.
Yeah, it is a measure 2 that is coming up, and I believe that I will support it as well. Unfortunately, the making marijuana illegal across the country has been disproportionate to members of our community and has made it a problem within our overcrowded jail systems. So I support even Biden's pardoning of people with minor marijuana possession. Like previous people have said, that it would bring revenue as long as it's done in a efficient way. I also want to make sure that with the legalization, that we also make sure that we continue to have mental health as a priority for that, and make sure that we help with addiction, and that some of that funds that are for the taxes for mental health are for marijuana go towards mental health and addiction and recovery.
Thank you, Ryan. Curtis.
Just a clarification on the question. If you could read the last part, would you support? I want to make sure I understand the premise of the question.
Would legalizing recreational marijuana be a priority for you at the state capitol? And it's been addressed about measures.
Thank you for clarifying that. And the answer is no, that would not be a priority for me. As we've already discussed, it's on the ballot. It's before the people. They've invoked their rights to put a measure on the ballot. And to be quite frank with you, I really don't care whether it passes or not. It's not something I've ever done. I get irritated when I hear a politician stand up at the microphone and say, yeah, I smoked a little dope back in the 60s. Everybody did. Well, I didn't. And I'm kind of proud of that. But if it passes, I don't care. If it doesn't pass, I don't care about that either.
Thank you, Curtis. Hamida.
Well, I have to say I've never used it, but it's not about me. It's about the people I represent. And if the people vote for it, it will be my number one priority, and I will vote for it too.
Great. Thank you, Hamida. Steve, you're up next. Yes. So what infrastructure improvements should be priorities for the North Dakota legislature that will impact your district's constituents?
You know, the word infrastructure, child care is critical. I'm not quite comfortable in the use of the word infrastructure when it comes to child care, but it is what it is. And I think child care is tantamount to the success of everything else that we do. And I think the opportunity for us to be able to work with the nonprofit organizations, the businesses, also, as Curtis has mentioned before, what everyone is doing and working together to come up with ideas and suggestions and utilizing the legacy fund, for example, in that area, and also really digesting what the governor has said in the area of child care, as well as the other task force that are out there. I think the big thing that legislators will need to do is not just read it, but take action on it. And that will be critical. So the child care is number one when it comes to that.
Thank you, Steve. Ryan.
Infrastructure is an interesting concept, and child care is definitely one that I would say priority. But in talking with our actual area where we live, we have a lot of apartments and we have a lot of people that don't necessarily have their own transportation. I think public transit is definitely something that's very important that we need to look at. In the city of Fargo alone, a bus only arrives on a bus stop every 30 minutes to an hour, which is hard to plan for somebody that needs to get across town. And sometimes it takes an hour or two to get across town. We need to have better infrastructure in our public transit system so that people can get to work on time and not spend money on Ubers, taxis, or try to find friends. This will also help with making sure people show up on time for work. It'll help our workforce by having that. That is one thing that we do lack in this state, and especially in the Fargo area.
Thank you, Ryan. Curtis.
One of the biggest infrastructure needs that I see out there is to enhance the water supply in eastern North Dakota and the natural gas supply. Both of those would be a real boost to economic development for the total eastern tier of the state. So that's something I'd like to see the state really tackle and move forward, is developing water supply to the eastern North Dakota, and to get natural gas supply better supplied to this part of the state. And in addition to that, my number one campaign priority is to get back on the Judiciary Committee and do something about the ever-increasing rate of violent crime. I think there are infrastructure needs within our criminal justice system that we need to look at to help tackle that ever-growing problem, which is a serious threat to our public safety, and it's getting worse all the time.
Thank you, Curtis. Hamida?
Well, I will say it will be education, and to make sure that we recruit and retain teachers in our school, and also childcare. Childcare is a business that make other business work. So if we don't have enough childcare and affordable childcare, accessible and affordable childcare for residents, especially my district, District 10, it's young families, and when you go out there and knock doors, you see children playing around, and if we don't have accessible childcare for parents, then it's hard for them to go to work. So my number one priority will be childcare and education if elected.
Thank you, Hamida. Damien?
Well, my priority is kind of a three-pronged attack. First of all, childcare, of course, is important. And then continuing along with that would be education then, too. And also, affordable housing would probably be my big one. Making it so people can afford their property taxes, making it so people live in apartments can afford houses, and making it so people that are unhoused can have one, can at least have a shelter over their head. And I believe we can use some funds to do some public housing options that would be helpful for a lot in our community, because we do have a lot, especially with veterans, of unhoused people. You don't see them, but they're there.
Thank you, Damien. Okay, Ryan, this next question is for you. A major barrier to home ownership is more than just prices. Property groups are buying up homes, driving up prices, and leaving fewer homes available to buyers. What are your thoughts on this?
I think I would have to do a little bit more research on that, because I'm not 100% familiar with that aspect of it. I think barriers to housing is a lot of property taxes is an issue, but as for people buying up property and having it their own, I think when we have developers that are buying property, I think they need to be conscious and of the types of houses they have, that they have a nice mix of those houses, and make sure that they are building affordable houses on all sides. But as I think for that question, I would have to do some more research before I could answer even more efficiently.
Okay. Thank you. Curtis?
Well, I think what you're discussing there is, this is the free market at work. And the free market will supply lower cost housing, and the free market will supply upper end housing. And I don't know what the state of North Dakota could do, the legislature could do to insert themselves into that process and interfere with that free market. I'm a great believer in letting the free market work, and government does have a role in helping people with affordable housing, but I'm not sure that you should force things on the private sector in that regard.
Thank you, Curtis. Hamida?
Well, I'm not sure about this question, but what I have to say is most of the people, when they are planning to buy a house, all they complain about is the special assessment that comes with the house. And if we can do something about that, is lowering property tax and thinking how we make businesses accountable of paying the roads and stuff that families don't have to pay when they buy a house. So again, I'm not 100% sure, but it's something I need to learn as we go.
Thank you, Hamida. Damien?
May you repeat the question, please?
Yes, of course. So a major barrier to home ownership is more than just prices. Property groups are buying up homes, driving up prices and leaving fewer homes available to lower income buyers. What are your thoughts on this?
That I am actually completely against. I am actually actually got almost trapped by that a couple years ago myself. I've been looking for a house, and suddenly they all disappeared because people from out of state are buying our houses, and they're basically trying to become out-of-state landlords. This is not okay. This is also creating a housing bubble, which we've seen what those do before, but that's still up in the air. But we need houses for North Dakotans that North Dakotans can buy and we can own. And that's a huge issue for me.
Thank you, Damien. Steve?
I think one thing that the legislature has done as far as when it comes to the housing area is the Renaissance zone authorities that communities can take advantage of. I serve on that authority here in Fargo, and what you can do is it's a multi-use faction where you can have low income, middle income, upper income, all in a diverse area, and it provides opportunities for income tax, property tax, cuts. In fact, you don't even pay property or income tax over these number of years. It's a benefit for the city because the property taxes will go up over the years, but also it's a benefit for all these individuals that can have affordable housing in certain areas. Also taking advantage of the Bank of North Dakota and the North Dakota Housing Finance Agency and what they can do for first-time home buyers is also a great benefit that we need to utilize and continue promoting that.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, Curtis, this question is for you. What would you do to prevent gun violence in our state?
Well, I believe that we should have armed resource officers in schools to protect our children. They should be trained, they should be professionals, and they should not only be protecting from gun violence, they should be working with the students and getting to know them and getting them to trust them. And I think that's the number one thing we can do to protect our schools. Interestingly enough, the school resource officer idea was first advanced by the Obama administration in 2013. They saw the value in it and they advanced it. And I think in order to protect these horrific or stop these horrific incidents of violence against our children, that's the very best thing we can do.
Okay, thank you, Curtis. Hamida?
Will you repeat the question, please?
Yes. What will you do to prevent gun violence in our state?
Well, first of all, we need laws that are very common sense around guns. What kind of guns can go into schools and why? And again, I'm not a big fan of having, resource officers in school. I prefer having social workers and psychologists and all those people to be with our children. But again, I will always support sensible gun laws.
Okay, thank you, Hamida. Damien?
Well, I believe this approach, first of all, definitely there's always sensible gun laws that need to be enacted. We've had them before, and we didn't have as many killings. And now we've gotten rid of an assault weapons ban, and we had a lot of killings. But one issue that I find with gun violence is a good chunk of gun violence is actually self-inflicted gun violence from people with mental health issues. If we can work on mental health issues, we can kind of head that part off at the pass. And I've heard of talk of possible legislation of being able to maybe hand your gun off to police without any penalty if you feel that you may be in danger to yourself or another person, and collect it when you're ready. Some stuff like this is common sense things that we can do to help protect all of us.
Thank you, Damien. Steve?
I think, as Curtis mentioned, the resource officers, I think, are a valuable tool to use. It's not just one all, but they're very important in that they're not just there for safety, they're also there to assist and work and determine, are there certain issues, are there certain problems, are there certain individuals that need help, and that they can defer them to the right people within that area. Simley School in Bismarck is now coming up with a program that they can assist teachers as well as other individuals within the school to determine who needs help, who needs assistance, and who are the right people to do it. They're more of the person that is aware of what's happening, and then they can defer it to someone else who has that knowledge and experience.
Thank you, Steve. Ryan.
Obviously, school gun violence has been an epidemic in this country for a long time. I feel that as a state legislator that there isn't laws that we can pass to protect our kids for under gun laws because we have open borders between different states and guns can cross states. I believe this is a national issue. I believe this is something that needs to be done in Washington to control gun violence across the country. I also agree with Hamida when she says we need more social workers in our system, in our school system, so we can talk to people. Adding guns to a school scares me because there has been studies in the past that have shown that adding an armed individual into a situation has actually created more death than less. So I believe we need to make sure that we need to reverse the scare tactics that we have done to our kids over the last decade, and we need social workers to help do that.
Thank you, Ryan. And then this is our last question. I'll make this a bit of a speed round. So Hamida,
Yes.
what is your position on reproductive rights and what role should the legislature play in addressing them?
Well, I do believe reproductive rights should be private to the person who is dealing with it. Nobody else should talk about it. And it's not an issue that is open for debate, just like any other medical issue that is not open for debate. So women should not be attacked by what they do with their body or how they choose to address it. I will always fight for that.
Thank you, Hamida. Damien.
Well, this is a pretty straightforward question. Reproductive freedom, it is something that shouldn't be held back by the government. It's something between a woman and her doctor. But when the government tries to interfere in the other way and stop it, that's a problem. So now we have to protect reproductive freedom because of the attacks.
Thank you, Damien. Steve.
There was a bipartisan movement in the North Dakota legislature years ago for the trigger law. And right now, one of the key issues that the legislature will have to deal with in this trigger law is there's a lot of serious concerns about it when you look at that. There is no protection for our medical profession as far as dealing when it comes to ectopic pregnancies, pre-prom, preeclampsia, all of those areas that it really puts exposure to our medical profession when it comes to the health and well-being of the mother. I think that at this point, we talk about government intrusion and involvement. I think it should be brought to a vote of the people in the 2024 election for them to determine what is the best way for North Dakota to deal with the abortion issue.
Thank you, Steve. Ryan.
As Steve alluded to, that we should bring this to the people. We did bring this to the people in 2014, and the people voted to have legalized abortion, and the legislature overrode that. I think we need to go back and listen to the people and stop the trigger law. Secondly, the Dobbs decision has created a problem with all sorts of medical decisions that go way beyond women's rights. It has opened us up to doors of people that is going to be attacked next is IVF, transgender rights, and we need to make sure that we're protecting them. People need to leave medical decisions between them, their doctor, the God they worship, and any loved ones within their family. Government shouldn't be involved in any of those medical decisions, period.
Thank you, Ryan. And Curtis.
Well, I've always taken a pro-life position in my former service in the Senate, and I'll continue to do that. But having said that, I also believe in some important exceptions for any legislation regulating abortion, especially IVF. This is personal to me. My daughter is in the room. My grandson is with her. And she has given me my permission to say that she went through IVF treatment, and I think there should be very strong exceptions and protections for the IVF process. There also should be exceptions for the health and well-being of the mother, and including one that is not currently protected, the ectopic pregnancies, as Steve alluded to. 70% of ectopic pregnancies are fatal. We have to be able to allow medical professionals to treat those. I think there also should be exceptions for a developing fetus that has severe abnormalities that are inconsistent with life, which is a well-defined legal and medical term.
Thank you, Curtis. Well, this concludes the question and answer part of the forum. Thank you to all the candidates for participating. For the audience at home, if you'd like to continue to learn more about your candidates, the League has partnered with the Forum Communications to present the vote411.org Voters Guide to help you learn more about North Dakota candidates' positions and their candidates and positions on important issues. Stay tuned to the Forum and League Facebook page and the voter guide at Vote411. And now we will begin with your closing remarks. Damien?
Excuse me. Well, I'd like to say thanks again for giving us the opportunity to come up here and speak about the issues. There are a lot of issues facing our community, and it is time to get to work on them. We've spoken about just, a handful of them tonight, and there are so many different things we could say about each one too. But it is time to get to work, and I'm a community member here to get to work for us.
Thank you, Damien. Steve?
North Dakota is fourth in the nation when it comes to the youngest median age, 35, and that has provided us with plenty of opportunities, but also provided us with plenty of challenges as well. I think it's critical that collaboratively in working with businesses, nonprofit organizations, the legislature, schools, higher education, that we can provide and meet these challenges that are facing us before everyone here tonight, as well as those that are out there on TV. It's exciting when you look at this and the difference that all of us that can make. My 8 years experience in the legislature would allow me the opportunity to start running on day one because of the knowledge that I've had in working with people. I've always believed in community involvement and community service, and I think that's very important. I would encourage all of you to vote for me on November 8th. And thank you for this evening.
Thank you, Steve. Ryan?
I just want to reiterate thank you again for this evening. It's been great listening to the different opinions of everybody on here. I am looking forward to working across the aisle with everybody to make sure that we make a better North Dakota. I will make sure that I'm listening to my constituents, and I think it's very important that we continue to listen to our constituents and vote with our constituents, not against our constituents. I think in the past, our legislature has often went against what the citizens have wanted. They have also caved to some of our corporate interests instead of listening to the people. I think we need to make sure that we are spending our resources on helping citizens, making sure that we have access to mental health care, childcare, public transit, that all can be done with the resources that we have available and the income that we continue to have from our natural resources, our taxes that we currently collect. I hope you will let me prove that I will listen to you and vote for me on November 8th.
Thank you, Ryan. Curtis?
Well, again, I'd like to emphasize my prior experience in the Senate of 6 years, and as Steve said, we can hit the ground running on day one. And I'd also like to, in closing, emphasize my number one campaign priority, which is to get back on the Judiciary Committee, where I served previously as Vice Chair, and take action from that position to do something about the ever-increasing rate of violent crime, which is plaguing not only Cass County, but all of North Dakota. I put together a spreadsheet, which is on my website, olafsonfornd.com, and that illustrates that in Cass County, over the period from 2011 to 2020, violent crime has increased 46% in Cass County and 38% statewide. And I'm not an expert on the criminal justice system, even with my past experience, but I'll be working with people who are prosecutors, and of which my daughter is one. And also Drew Wrigley is coming out with a new crime initiative.
Thank you, Curtis. Hamida.
Well, thank you again to the League for hosting this event. Thank you for the audience, the ones who are here in person and those who are watching online. Thank you to my fellow running mates and people who are running against me for being here tonight. I will say this, North Dakota need leaders who will listen, and we will be those leaders for District 10. People are struggling a lot with so many things in our district, and it is very sad because North Dakota is one of the richest states. And we are not highly populated, and we can address all these issues if only we have people who listen us. Tonight, the viewers have heard our vision and what we want to do for North Dakota, and I humbly ask for their votes. People have been ignored for so long, and that has to stop. And by doing so, you need to elect people who will listen to you, and I am one of them. I ask for your vote in November 8th.
Thank you, Hamida. And that is the last forum of the evening. So I will say thank you again to the candidates for a wonderful forum. And I guess that's adieu.